So hopefully I am live. Yep. Just going to bring up the chat, which is all good. So I'll just wait for a few people to come in because this is going to be just a very quick follow-up from the video that I released yesterday. Hi, Travis. Nice to see you in. Hi, Ryan. Oh, Ryan. Yeah, about that video, mate. I think I'm going to upload it onto a different channel of mine. I think it's called Ranty2. I've got a few in there. Right. Effie Viking, Ali B, Joey Silver. Nice to see you in. Right, guys. Hi, Matthew Stevenson. Right. Okay, guys. Listen, there's been... Now, you guys already all know this, right? You know what's going to come next. But in some of the comments that I get a lot of this aspect ratio. They're talking about aspect ratio on the video of the boat disappearing. Now, all they're saying is to downscale the boat in an aspect ratio, right? This is what they're asking to do. And they are completely forgetting the compression that happens in the very narrow band of the area that things get compressed in. So what they're saying is to take measure the antenna at the beginning, measure the antenna at the end, and then superimpose a boat over it, and you'll see that essentially part of the boat is missing. Well, I'm just going to address that because there's a few people that seem to be saying this thing. So I know that they haven't actually been following my work, so they don't know what's going to be shown to them right now. So just bear with me. So this dude asked me to measure the antenna, right? So this top part. Now this is the same boat, and I've already been through this many a time. You guys have seen me do it on Nathan's. I've already done other videos with it now. The first point we need to note is that we see this orange part underneath the words Stena Line that are clearly still evident in this lower image. So this image was taken from 1 foot. This image was taken from 30 foot in elevation. In both images, we're seeing all of the boat. I've scaled it widthways so that it all matches up. The only difference that we're seeing is that the top image looks more compressed than the bottom. So when we actually do some workings out on this, just bear with me. Stay, get the next image up. Typical. Just one sec. Bloody hell is it? Right. Sorry, guys, about that. So essentially what I've done is I've scaled it lengthways and I've put some lines in across these different things. So from antenna height, I've done it down to the lifeboat, which is this orange thing in the middle. And I've done it down to the front of the deck, which is here. In the next image, I've now cropped each of those out. And what do you know? They match up absolutely perfectly in both images. Still scaled to the same size. You know, there's no difference between the two. They're just an identical crop out of the same image. In the next image, we will see the same again. So side by side, they're the same lengthways, but there's the antenna, there's the antenna, there's the red line going to underneath the lifeboat. So aspect ratio works fine in this regard outside the narrow angle. Anything beneath this red line, and you start to see the compression. So what would that do to the boat disappearing over the horizon? Well, as you see, well, apparently in their eyes going over the horizon, we know that didn't happen. We know that we were still able to see the antenna, and then we got the inferior mirage underneath it. Well, we know that the inferior mirage happens in this narrow angle here where all this compression takes place. On some days you see the inferior mirage, on other days you just see the compression. I have a feeling that the compression still happens when you see the inferior mirage. It would make absolute sense from all the other stuff that I've seen. In any event, You cannot aspect ratio over long distances over water. It's just impossible. The further it goes, the more it gets pushed into that critical angle that compresses the boat. Outside of the narrow angle, you get this aspect ratio that matches up fine. There's no difference in the aspect ratio of the mast all the way down to the boat, to the lifeboat. But underneath that, that's when you see all the compression. And you know you're seeing both, all of the boat, because you've got all the words of the Stena line here, same as in this. You've got the orange hull underneath, the orange hull. The camera's picking it all up, but it's struggling to keep everything as an aspect ratio as a function of the camera. And it's just the way it is. Just the way it is. So I wanted to do a quick video to address this. If somebody wants another explanation as to what's been going on with this, I can show you it on this video here. Another perfect example, red pill philosophy. The aspect ratio of these individual build, you know, the like floors. So these individual floors, they're all great. When you get down to the very, very narrow angle, you start to see the compression taking place at the bottom. It's very evident. You know, they're not built smaller at the bottom and wider at the top. They're all the same height, but right near that critical viewing angle, they get very compressed. So if this was the boat and this was the mast of the boat up here, and this was the hull of the boat down here, it would be the same effect. You'd get that compression of the hull, and outside of that compression zone, the aspect ratio of everything else would stay the same. If somebody wants to see a screenshot of this, and I'll just zoom in so that they can see it a little bit better. Here we go. That is a floor there. That is an entire floor there. Here we have another entire floor. And look how much smaller and compressed they are in comparison to the floor at the top. Massive difference. The lower down you go, things get compressed, more compressed. So you cannot aspect ratio over long distances and over water. It's impossible. And I also feel, like I said, that this inferior mirage happens in sort of this zone here where the compression starts. And when you see the inferior mirage, the compression is still happening, but you're getting the inferior mirage as well. So that's just addressing some of the people that have been coming onto my channel talking about my last video, flapping the gums because maybe they haven't been following my work or anything like that. But this is just a special one for these guys because they needed to be shown it, because just writing it doesn't seem to work anymore. Right, so who have we got in? Infinite Lottie Society. They're stealing our world. Right, Ali B, they're flapping in the wind. Yes, they are. This is useful evidence of a flat surface. If it was the globe, then the red line would not be seen. Indeed, exactly. That's the whole point. The good thing about this boat is that you actually see the orange hull of it, the underside of it, essentially. So yeah, there's been like I said, there's been a few different people that that mentioned this particular point about the boat, and it's like they actually think that I actually haven't already addressed this in the previous months. So I'm assuming that some of the trolls that have come from Globebusters or from different channels or what have you, what they don't realize is that I've already been there, I've already done it, I've already addressed this issue, I've already worked it all out. It's already been explained before. You can't aspect ratio over water because outside of the critical angle, everything stays the same, which is perfect here. And then on the next image, so if this is all matching up perfectly, the mast and everything, the hull certainly isn't. So that's being compressed. So you can't say, you can't match that up and then superimpose this boat over the top of this boat, because then you'd have a false result. You literally would have a false result. It's not the way it works. Not the way it works. Right. So yeah, this is just a quick one for these guys, and I'll knock it on the head. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. A few shouts out, Ryan, My View, FE King, FE Viking, Ali B, My View 1875, Joey Silv, The Plain Truth. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and I will see you all again soon. Thanks very much. Yeah, I think the compression is an angle rather than a set height. I absolutely do. Yeah, I am going to do a new. I've got a new channel. It's Ranty2, I think it's called. But I'm going to change the name of it to something different. And my plan is to upload all my data onto that. So every video that I ever take, whether it's good, bad, ugly, I don't care what it shows, what it doesn't show, every single point of data that I go out and film, I can upload it onto my other Ranty account. And then when I actually make a video and put it together, I can put it in a concise video on this channel. So it'll be like somewhat of a storage channel so that anyone can go to and they can, they can go and download the videos and use them, whatever. If that sounds good, I know I've spoken to other people about it, and I think I have so much data, it's unbelievable. Literally over the last 8 months, I've got like 2 terabytes worth of data, and it would take me a year to upload it all again now. But I think going forward, I could upload at least 3 or 4 videos each day that I've gone out filming, and I could, rather than cluttering up this channel, I could put it all down onto a different channel, and then everyone can have access to that. If that makes sense. Anybody? Right, so Ryan Vincent says, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think so too. Because I've got a lot of data on this channel, but it's hard to know where to look for a decent video that's been put together and made concise, as opposed to me just going out and showing observations that, you know, just blow your socks off. But if I do all that on the other channel and save the best stuff for this channel, I think that's maybe what I'll do. Because I mean, I don't know if people are going to understand me showing them the wind turbine video. I mean, I might actually show that again now, actually. So bear with me whilst I bring that video up, because I actually don't think putting this up, people are going to understand exactly, you know, the whole point of the video. Yeah, let's see if I can get that up again. Yeah, that's it. They do it as it shows the optical effects rather than the curve of the Earth. Yeah, and if you know my work, it's all about the optical effect. And when the globers see it, they jump up and down and scream that it's a proof of curvature. Right? They don't take the time to analyze what they're seeing. You know, in their opinion, it's just, yeah, that's curve. You know, and yet when we see things that are further away, they'll instantly jump to, no, we're not seeing it. That isn't real. That's fake. That's looming or something like that. Yeah, just let me share my screen again. Hi, Kinel. How are you doing? Hide that. Right. So let's go to the video. So this is the video that I just don't think people are going to understand too much. You know, I mean, they'll see some turbines, they'll see a boat, and I'm not too sure that having this kind of stuff on this channel is constructive going forward, because it's more to do with the research rather than the results. So I think I want to save this channel for results, and I want to do the research side of stuff on a different channel and have all this data put up there for anybody to mull over and look at, etc. And yeah, it's quite a long video. And what I do is I go down, I show you where I am, then I go down the steps and I get closer to the water. At one point, I get a massive wave that comes and essentially drenches me. There we go. Here we go. Watch this. Boom! Have some of that. Yeah, that's quite fun. It still didn't stop me crouching down and getting a lower shot from that exact spot, because it's all about the data at the end of the day. And here I zoom into the ferry again, and you can see the compression starting to take effect on the hull. Not as obvious as the other one because I wasn't at 1 foot. The images that I was showing before from an elevation of 1 foot, this elevation is probably about 7 or 8 feet above sea level. So it's not going to make it's not going to compress it too much. And yeah, so I mean, this data might be boring to a lot of people, but in terms of finding the truth and analyzing the data, I think it's important to release all this footage that I've got, because I'm sure a lot of people don't do what I do and release stuff like this all the time. Who have we got there? Right. It's why they don't say they're showing video from different heights. They show one height and then one low. Intermediate heights would show the optical effects causing the issues. Yeah, well, I've got all that on my channel already, haven't I? And every time I put a video up like that, I get the trolls coming. Thanks for the proof of curvature. Thanks for the proof of curvature, which it isn't. It's actually collecting data that can be analysed at a later time. It's like all those elevation drops when I was looking at the buildings of Barrow, and it looked like the buildings were looming. You know, now through having all that data, I can now look back at them and say, gee, well, I understand it. The inferior mirage is what's actually hiding those buildings. You know, those inferior mirage, those floaty buildings aren't floaty anymore. They are literally hide. It's the inferior mirage that's hiding the bottom of them. You know. Hi, Anders Ace. Nice to see you in. Yeah, well, going back to this video, this whole video is about this compression issue with these. I've had the trolls on my last video that I released saying to me, "Why we can still see the mast of the boat, which you can in the video. You can still see the mast of the boat, and then you start to see the inferior mirage underneath it, and you see an inverse image of the mast. Right? That's what you do see." You can't deny that. That's exactly what's happening. However, they're trying to say that you can take the aspect ratio of the mast and then they want me to superimpose an image of that like this over one another to see how much of the boat is lower than the inferior mirage, essentially to prove in their minds that it's going over the curvature of the Earth. However, because I've already analysed these before, I've put these lines in on the boats. This is from elevation of 1 foot, 30 foot. You can absolutely see when I crop them out and I put them side by side, they're the same, right? There's no discernible difference in the aspect ratio. So far, the Globers would be going, woohoo! Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. You know, this is the boat going over the, you know, in your video that in their mind goes over the curve. And this is the aspect ratio of the boat close up. So in their mind, this is what they would see. And then they would want me to superimpose the rest of this boat over this image here on the right to get the aspect ratio. But the aspect ratio gets all screwed up when you start looking over water and you got this compression going on. And this is the perfect example because, again, 1 foot observation, 30 foot observation. This is now the bottom part of the boat here is now in the compression zone. And outside of the compression zone, everything matches up perfectly. Inside the compression zone, so essentially when it was going in through that inferior mirage, yeah, now we've lost half the depth of the boat. Half the height of the hull has gone. So I couldn't superimpose this image over this because it would be incorrect. It wouldn't match up. They've got to factor in the compression that's going on. Yeah, and they wouldn't, you know, I don't know whether they don't know this or they're not aware of the work that I've been doing, but this is essentially what they want me to do. They want me to superimpose an image of this over an image like this and then say, oh, look, the hull should be down here where my cursor is. Yeah. And in the past, you know, going back a year ago, you know, we would have struggled to find an answer for that. We really would. I know that we were talking in the past, me, Anthony, and Nathan, about this sort of stuff, and we were struggling to come up to answers with this. And it's only through this research that you understand that in a very small angle here, things get compressed. And the good thing about this boat is you can make out the name. So you can see the Stena line and the orange hull underneath it. So let me zoom in and I'll show you that. You've got the Stena line. All the words are easily made out. The orange hull underneath, which is the only orange part on the boat. So it can only be this orange part of the boat here, which is essentially the bottom of the hull. And once you know that you're seeing all of the boat in this image, and yet its aspect ratio at the outside, at the top part of it matches up, but the aspect ratio at the bottom doesn't, then you can't use aspect ratio to analyze the video that I released yesterday because it just wouldn't work. just wouldn't work. Let me just see. No boat went over the horizon. So if I go back to the dashboard and go to this one, no boats went over the horizon. Yeah, that's the one I just had up, isn't it? So if I go to here, and I'll show you what they want me to do. So yeah, so here we go. So they want me on this image, right? See this mast at the top? I had it there. So there we go. So there we've got the mast at the top of the boat. This is the same boat, Stena Hibernia. And they want me to concentrate on this mast, right? And they want me to superimpose an image of the boat without any compression on it over this boat here as it there we go. Look at that. So there's the mast, there's the boat. All this compression that starts down at the bottom here where the inferior mirage starts, outside of the inferior mirage, its aspect ratio stays the same all the way. But inside the compression zone where the inferior mirage is here, that's where everything gets compressed. So that hull is now half the size, even less if you look at the footage from Red Pill Philosophy of those, you know, those floors on that building. You can see how compressed they get. So yeah, so they want me to superimpose an image without compression, just aspect ratio, so shrinking the sides of it, etc. So when it goes right down to the edge here, there we go, and you can still see the mast, right? So they want me to take a screenshot of this mast. Let's do that, actually. Let's just do that, just for the hell of it. Right, so I've taken a screenshot of that. Now let's get it up in Paint. So let's paste that into there, right? So they want me to take an image like this. Where are we? This one. So let's open it in. Just bear with me. They want me to open it in. Open Paint on that, right? So let's crop that out. So here we have the boat. They want me to take this image of this boat in its entirety. And then they want me to try and superimpose that on this without any compression, right? So now I need to make the height of this boat match up to the mast here. Bearing in mind, no compression, right? Still not big enough. Not far off. Not far off. Right, so that's about the same height as the mast. But look where the boat is. Look how far down the boat is. It's way beneath these waves, right? Way, way, way beneath these waves without compression. Yeah, but you know that this line of compression starts here. So let's get rid of that. So now when we put the compression zone in there, which is where this inferior mirage is, and everything's getting squished like down to here, right? Everything's getting squished into ever smaller areas. So this floor is supposed to be the same height as this floor. This floor here is the same height as this floor way down here. Yeah. How many floors of here could you fit in this floor here? 1, 2, 3, 4, probably more. Yeah. So this is the compression zone. This is what they don't understand. They don't understand this. Well, they probably do now. Aspect ratio doesn't work over water over long distances. Things get compressed. This is in the compression zone. This isn't. This is out of the compression zone, which is why it matches up perfectly in aspect ratio to this one. And in this image here, if I was to, like I had that bolt in, all this compression, just like these floors over here, these little floors that are all being crushed into, when you get right down to the very, very small parts, they're already getting compressed here. right at the bottom, almost invisible. That whole boat is there. It's there. The whole boat is there. It's just compressed in that inferior mirage zone here. All that compression is happening there. The boat is there, but it's just being compressed to almost nothing and hidden behind the inferior mirage. They don't understand it. They haven't done the work on this. They just see something. They think it goes over the curve of the Earth. Not at all. We've got to do a few more shout outs, a few more people in. Who else is talking? Let's see. Rob Kiln. I see you in. Kinell. Not Vinegar Strokes anymore. There's not many people talking, actually. I've got 34 watching, and there's just the same people talking. So there's probably a lot of people just listening in to see the explanation for this. And I'm glad that I've got some people watching, because ultimately, hi, the brain, is that, you know, this will hopefully answer, because I've had about 10 comments from people I've never heard from before that are basically asking the same question for me to superimpose over the mast. And hello, Mr. Flat Curve. There you go. I'm sorry, CGI Ranty, but I don't know who you are. So I know that you mess around a lot, and there's no way I'm making you a moderator, mate. Sorry. Hi, Mig. Yeah, there's a lot of trolls at the minute, and they haven't done this. They haven't taken this compression into account. I was just listening, but didn't want you to feel lonely. Who's Oxbow Spirit? Share the hotel photo showing the compression as much as possible. This is the hammer hitting the nails into the final coffin of the curvature belief. Well, yeah, I mean, I can show you the image again for sure, because essentially on this, you can measure floors. You know that these floors are all the same height. They didn't build them at different heights. You know, this floor here is the same height as the floor beneath it. And if I move that down there, it matches up pretty well. You know, I mean, yeah, matches up in height. You know, you can't make any distinction between the box that I've just made. And we go down to the third floor, there's a slight difference, not much. The fourth floor, again, there's a difference. Let me just scroll in so that you guys can see this better. So this is the analyzing of it. So floor 1 at the top is out of the compression zone. Or even if it's slightly in it, it's not being compressed very much. The same with the next floor. Again, very little compression going on from the first 2 floors. Third floor, it is getting slightly narrower. Fourth floor, well, there's a bit of a difference on the fourth floor. The fifth floor, well, that's where you really start to see a difference. You've lost probably 30% of the height of the top floor just by a quick looking over at this. You've literally lost about 30% of it down here. On the next one, we're down to what you would say probably 40% lost of it, I would say. But then the next floor, this is the real killer. This one, you've lost about 70% of the height of that. And then the very bottom one, this sliver, it's probably only 5% of the height of the original. You know, I mean, it's pixels. You know, there's a couple of pixels there basically. The height, it's the width of this box, this line of the box. That's all it is. There's so this can be measured. You know, this can be measured, and it's not just on that floor either. If I scan over to this side here, you also see the same compression of this lower two floors here. So we've got, well, let's start here. This floor, well, 50%, 40%. This floor, the last floor, it's nothing. You know, there's no comparison now between the height of the top floor. The aspect ratio of it all gets screwed up. These look like different windows actually. So let me just do it to the black. Let me do it to the height of the black parts of these windows. It's about right, I would say. So again, then it starts to change. And then we come further down there. Yeah, we've lost 40% of it there. We've lost more than 50% of it there, and then it's down to next to nothing. So this can be measured, and it's very similar, like I say, very, very similar in all regards as to the boat. Very similar to the boat. You know, if you take these floors and you imagine this is floors of the building, you know, the aspect ratio of this, the mast and antenna down to the lifeboat is consistent. You know, there's no real change in that. The change happens on the lower part, you know, just with the buildings. And you can imagine that the further away you push things into that angle, because I'm going to call it an angle as opposed to a set height. I don't think it's a set height. I think it's an angle. And that angle will, as you go further away, just with that boat that was passing in the last video that I showed. Yeah, so as that boat goes further away, by virtue of it actually moving away from the observer, which is myself, it's getting further into, it's still, the narrow zone is still the same. Let's say it's 0.2% the angle. The boat is just being pushed by virtue of it going further away into that zone. And that's why we get the inferior mirage that's definitely starting there. You can see the white of the boat here is a reflection of the white of the boat above it here. You can see that this square, if you put a line right through the middle, that's where the inferior mirage is. And that's where all the compression is. That's where all of that compression is. So if you can get a building to look like this, if you can get a building that can be squashed to this extent here, where you've got one floor is equivalent to only 30% of the floor at the top, and the bottom floor at the very bottom is only probably 5% of that building, of that floor at the top, then essentially you could have a 50-foot boat and you could squeeze it into 2 foot of imagery. So that's the sort of stuff that we're dealing with here. So in this inferior mirage here, all that compression is squashing it into just 5% of its real height. That's what's happening. And this can be evidenced in all kinds of different videos. So now when aspect ratio gets all screwed up over water without the compression, they just see, I don't think they think that compression happens, but so we need to hammer home about this compression and how it does actually work, how you can actually measure it. They compress their towers. Hi, Jamie. Air is liquid, so overland compression can take place, but maybe not as much as over water. Yeah, I mean, again, I always say that you can't measure things in a laboratory, sort of like the effects of what you're seeing. You can't do that. You have to be out in the field because you have atmosphere. That atmosphere can change things. Hi, Spurs Chemo. I see you in. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I really wanted to show you guys. I think I've gone on about it enough now. And at least I can always refer them back to this video if they ever ask it again, Kana. So I got, like I say, a few shout outs to Brain. I see you in, Andres, Jamie Brown. Jamie Brown, are you gone back to the ball, mate? or are you still sort of like 50-50? What else have we got? Mig and everybody else. I'm sure I've said hello to everybody else. AJM, thanks for coming in. BLX, Billy Wazzer, Frank, nice to see you in. Right, so yeah, gonna knock it on the head. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. 41 watching. I'll settle for that. And if anyone's just joined and they want to watch it back, by all means, because it will help answer the aspect ratio comments I've had from the Globe Believers before. Right, so thanks very much for stopping by, guys, and I shall see you later.